First item on our agenda would be the approval of minutes from last month.
So move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second, so let's call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And by the way, this morning all of our alternates are voting members today, in case there's any question. The next thing would be public comment, and not seeing any. New business. We have no new business, and we have no old business. So we have under.
I'd like to, if I could, I have just a question. I wasn't able to be at the last meeting, and in reading the minutes, question, seeing that Mr. Bolton's here, that I'd like to ask is, when Dr. Baker had asked about the septic tanks with this concept of system would need to be pumped out, I thought and your answer was yes, but I also thought that and again, I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I thought the concept was that there'd actually be a line tied into these that would actually go to lift stations.
Actually, there's a line tied in to remove the effluent, but the tank chamber that has the waste in it would still remain, and we would pump, but the city would be responsible. So that once they become a customer of the utility, the city would schedule those pump outs, and it would be part of the city's cost.
Okay, and it wouldn't be anything more in a frequency concept than what a
less
system
frequency.
is now.
Yeah, less frequency. Actually, you have there is the problem with the drain field being clogged, so therefore it's recommended every 5 to 7 years. What I'm finding is with the utilities that I've talked to, because you don't have that problem anymore, they're getting 7 to 9 years out of the frequency of pump outs.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. If it's all right, let's take the under Chairman's Matters. Let's just discuss the FNPA response to Ms. Turner first, and then we'll have the rest of our meeting to work on our annual report. I'm sure you all saw this. I think it was a somewhat condescending response in that, our concerns were that Mr. Thesis' email said that we were not going to meet all of our legal obligations under the agreements. And that's something that we've always been very clear that we were going to do. The city was going to meet all of our legal obligations. There are some things that we, they think we owe something. We don't think we owe something, and that's what we're negotiating now and may, in fact, one day have to litigate. I hope not. I hope we can come to agreement on that. But that's not to sit back and say that we disagree whether we owe something or not is not to say that we won't fulfill our legal obligations. And there's nothing in the newspapers. I went back and researched it. There's nothing in the newspapers around that time that he refers to, no news reports, which said that we would not fulfill our legal obligations. The other issue is, and he mentions here the stranded costs from the All Requirements Project. The only cost that is in dispute in the All Requirements Project is the Taylor swaps, and we've discussed those at length. The cost of the hedging, the speculation that they did with the Taylor swaps, which aren't in fact stranded costs according to the definition, the commonly held definition for stranded costs. That's hard assets, and they actually financial costs are covered under even a different section of the All Requirements Project contract. So, I don't know what stranded costs they're talking about. There's been none identified to date. So, anyways, I don't know what else we can do. We asked them to clarify it. They said they won't clarify it. So, their official position is at that point in time we weren't going to meet our legal obligations. And I think that's unfortunate that the organization that we helped found takes that view of us, the city of Vero Beach. Any other?
I've forgotten.
Scott, what position did the council take with respect to this? Just leave it to the attorneys to continue to try to negotiate the differences?
Yeah, we're the attorneys and Florida Power and Light and the FMPA now have some other ways they're trying to resolve these matters. Supposedly, according to this letter, our attorney should have their preliminary response by now. I haven't heard anything from the attorneys, and maybe in the 19th at the next city council meeting. And I don't have any information on this either. But soon we should hear from our attorneys as what their response are, because he said in this that we sent them a communication October 11th. They're reviewing this document, and Vero Beach's attorney should have received the preliminary comments next week, dated the 22nd. So we should, if he was able to meet his own deadline, we should have some of their preliminary concepts. But I haven't heard, like I said, I haven't heard anything. And I know Jim just walked in, and so let's. You missed kind of. Let me catch you up to speed here. In the FNPA letter that they sent to Ms. Turner, they said that within a week or so from October 22nd that they were going to get back to our attorneys with some of their thoughts. Have we got any feedback on that from?
The answer to the question is yes, our attorneys did talk to FMPA folks. It was really more of a thoughts. And we are in the process of trying to put those thoughts into a transmittal of a document to them. But it's still very general. The key is, and the big topic of conversation was on the security issues pertaining to how the city will place the utility tax and the franchise fee as part of the security. How will that document be written? For example, our recommendation that would go to council is that only affects the utility tax and a franchise fee that is associated with the electric utility. The second thing is that it would only take place if there was a default, for example, of Orlando Utility Commission, that they should falter. Then at that point is when that pledge would take place. We would not have to put the money in reserves. We would use that as ongoing operational cost. But at that point, that obligation would go toward that security. So that discussion has taken place, and our attorneys are trying to put together a document of how that would be proposed. And then I do know that there have been several conversations between the upper management of Florida Power and Light and FMPA, and again, conversations. To my knowledge, there are no documents that we have other than the original proposal from FP&L to FMPA. So we have not seen a written response back from that.
All right. Thank you. And those sound like very reasonable positions that we're taking. That we only have to
time consuming.
Yeah, but reasonable in that we only have to perform on our security in the event of default. So that's
Jim?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Were you wanting to complete your thought?
Well, I said that's very reasonable and very common, and that would be very, I think, unreasonable to require us to effectively perform on our security prior to a default. So.
And you got to remember the OUC, securing OUC, one is that we will have a contract with them where they're taking our obligation. So they would actually have to go out of existence in order to have an obligation on our part. So it's a pretty limited. Plus, there are we have insurance on the bonds that have been issued. So we have security on those bonds, and the only thing we'd be responsible for is that portion that would not be paid.
Right. All right. So I can't imagine that they would object to that.
It's a very minimal risk.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the things before you walked in the door was sort of the tone of the letter and our interpretation of what that might mean. And would you say that the overall atmosphere in terms of the negotiations that are occurring today is better than perhaps it was a month ago on this specific set of issues, or are we simply still each party staking out their position and it's sort of cut and dried?
I don't think there's anything cut and dried. The problem that letter indicates and the issue there is we know who signed it, but we don't know who wrote it. And so in the bowels of the organization of FMPA, it's sort of like in the organizational structure of Florida Power and Light. It depends on what department it comes from, and so the overall tone between Nick Gariello and Sam with Florida Power and Light and Nick and I, we don't seem to have any real issues there. We're able to be very congenial in our conversations and our discussions. When it gets down to the legal and the lawyer part of it, it becomes a little more contentious.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, let's talk about our goals. The annual report we submitted last year reviewed the goals that we set for 2012 and what we accomplished with broke it up into electrical and water sewer, and then set goals for 2013. So let's discuss these 2013 goals and then set some 2014 goals. And I don't know, it was in last month's packet, so you might not have it. You have some extra copies? Okay.
Could I get one?
Jane and I have come prepared. We want you to know,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, I was halfway prepared. I made copies this morning and somehow only brought one page. And so Sherry covered for me with page 2 as well. All right. So I'd like to follow this same basic format. I think it's simple and it works. So if there's no objection, we can do that. And on page 2 is our 2013 goals. Our first goal was to continue to monitor the FNPA issues, and I think that we did that. We even did that. We touched on that again today. Monitoring. We also wanted to monitor and make recommendations with respect to the sale. And I think we've done that. We've also wanted to, again, work with city staff and the utility staff to make sure that they maintained the system to industry standards, and we did that. And we had a substantial upgrade and repair to our units 5 and 2. We didn't have an upgrade. We had a repair and maintenance on it, which actually came in, what was it, $2,000, $million under budget. Right. So that was great news. I think we could have worked more closely with the Finance Commission, and we have made recommendations, and I think we're moving forward on getting a different site for the substation. I think that's in works in the process. We have had quarterly reports, and we had, with respect to the assist in the budget process, our last electric goal, we've gotten quarterly reports, and we've spent a lot of time working on the rate requirements, getting to those issues. Any other thoughts on those, or things we should have what else we should have done in those areas, or how should we respond. I think we pretty much accomplished the goals. I think except with respect to I think we could have worked more closely with the Finance Commission, although we have had them at, I think, two of our meetings. We had we had members of the Finance Commission here.
It'd be interesting from my perspective to see what the city sees as its important utility objectives this year, and how we can help facilitate the accomplishment of those goals. I mean, I think in some respects, everything that we started out to do in 2013 still is relevant. I mean, I don't think there's anything here that essentially has disappeared with respect to the electric. It's got a little different form and shape to it, but periodically it requires our attention. So, but with that said, and particularly with respect to water and sewer and the new issue that's before this community and everybody in the state, it'd be sort of interesting to see where Rob and the city manager might look to us for continued support and guidance.
I think is your role as a utility commission, one of the things that I think you still need to continue to keep abreast of the electric transaction, and to make sure that reports are given on a regular basis from either myself or Randall, or maybe sometime one of the transactional attorneys. I think that's important. In the area of water and sewer, I think there are two issues that you might want to be involved in. One of those is the lagoon issue. How are we going to continue our efforts, especially if the reports come back and we find that the septic tank issue becomes greater than we even envisioned, then working with Rob and looking at options and alternatives as to how that plays. Now, that's going to have two real issues there. One is what we do within the corporate limits, and then the other is how we encourage the county, since we have customers in the county and have no jurisdiction in whatever policy we would have on septic tanks. But I think that's something that you can continue to look at. The other is, and I anticipate that the South Beach franchise issue will come back, and I think that using the Utility Commission to sort of look at that discussion, and as you know, that the county, at one of the county commission meetings, determined that it would be almost infeasible, not feasible for them to take the South County. That was the latest discussion, and then how to work with us in doing that. And the proposal we put forth to the county, and I think the one that they're looking at, is that we would offer the county rates similar to what we did with Indian River Shores. What the issue, I think, that is the burning issue is the franchise fee that the county would like us to split that. We don't call it franchise fee. What do we call that? Equalization charge, which we did in Indian River Shores. My recommendation is that we keep that entire 6%. The county would like to have 3%, but I keep referring back that the same deal they gave Sebastian is the deal that we're giving them, because when they took the Sebastian utilities. But that type of discussion, I anticipate, will be coming forth and coming back over to for discussion. So in the utility area, I think those are the three main points at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. With respect to the well, then let's move into the water sewer, because Jim brought that up. Do we want to add what? We never studied with respect to water sewer. I don't think we had a meeting on regionalization. I don't think we did that.
No, we did not.
No.
Negatory.
But we have worked on with Rob, and Rob's kept us abreast of the regulatory compliance issues. We've made reference to new regulations and how they would be affecting water quality, which is one of the reasons we went ahead and continued to maintain and keep our reverse osmosis system up to standards, which, by the way, this might be a little bit of a rabbit trail here, but I was a little frustrated by the reporting when we had that meeting where, Rob, you came and you talked to us about the maintenance, replacing the filters in the reverse osmosis system, and it got written up in the newspaper that we're spending all kinds of money on the system, and supposedly the county has a newer system, and so they don't have to do that. Well, they have to replace their filters and their reverse osmosis system as often as we have to replace our filters and our reverse osmosis system. The difference is the county doesn't have a utility advisory commission where this information is discussed in the public before the press. It's just done at the staff level. And so we give the information out, we discuss it, we're very open about it, and it gets reported that slanted. So that was a little frustration, personal frustration of mine with respect to our recent meeting on that. But we have to replace those filters just like we have to replace filters in our air conditioner because they stop working after a while. And it's a cost. Rob, you've continued to work on the optimization. We haven't heard anything lately from you on that, but early on in this year, I think we replaced the lab, we outsourced the lab, we did some things like that. I'd like to hear more as we go forward into 2014 on that. We made some recommendations and on the sludge process. I think we're going forward on that new system, and that's really, I think that's a very good deal for the city, very good deal for us. And we work on the budgeting process with you and give you a hand on that and keep that out in the open and in front of the public. But we do have, going forward, we do have the South County issues. And one of the things that would be nice is if we could get a handle, a way to explain the fact that what is the real rate differential between what we charge and what the county charges. And I know that there's differences in the way it's computed, and my understanding is it's not that material of a difference to the end user.
Depends on your consumption pattern as the end user as to what the effects are. We have the GAI study that shows that total revenue stream changes less than 1% or something, right in the 1% mark. So how it's going and who's paying it is really the shift. And it really is summed up is that we have higher rates for lower use consumers and they have higher rates for higher use consumers. And so you just switch that around, and in the city of Vero Beach, it probably would mean an increase in the total revenue stream because we have a lot of commercial users, which obviously would be the larger consumers in that under that system. But all that being said, the 1 or 2% differential is insignificant when you really look at it going forward. And so we don't administratively we have no concerns either way, and you'll probably see another article, it's my understanding, coming out probably this week. But the key is that we see it as just a differential in the way that the charges are allocated.
Well, maybe again, it's just as we're speaking as a goal for 2014, we can drill down into that a little bit and see what I would imagine that the South County users are buying, and I'm not asking for an answer today, but I would speculate that the South County users are by and large greater users, non-commercial users. They use more water than Central Beach or our mainland users. So a lot of big houses down there, and big houses use more water. So it may be not in their best interest, and if that's the case, I think we should get that information out. So let's go ahead and for our 2014 goals, we want to continue to monitor our first two issues under electrical. Continue to monitor the FNPA, and monitor and make recommendations on the sale. We want to continue to work with staff and make sure that the facilities are maintained to industry standards. Want to continue to work with the Finance Commission, I think. I'm going to come back, Rob, to you a little bit on that after we're done with this, I think, and ask you how that went with the Finance Commission on the lagoon issue. I should have brought that up under old business, and I apologize. Jim, are we done on the site location? Have we made that switch with
How
the
about
substation?
the substation? No, we've run into some issues there. The company, Hearn Construction, who was sort of heading up the effort of taking that corner and developing it, had a memorandum of understanding with partners on a portion of the site that we were going to move the substation to, where the housing units are located. That evidently has fallen through. They now have identified another site. They still own a portion of that, so the substation would have to go on a smaller site. I'm not sure that's doable, but they have identified another site, so they are in the process. Florida Power and Light gave a proposal. I sent that on to Hearn to review and to mark up that proposal, and that's evidently what he's in the process of doing.
Okay, thank you. So we really, rather than work on it, we should monitor that.
That's correct. And if we do get another site selected, I'd like to be able to bring that back to the Utility Commission for review.
Right, because we would all like to see that property on Indian River Boulevard
Commercially developed.
Commercially developed, yeah, maintained for development. And I'd like to add, with respect to the budget process, our last goal is add specifically the rate sufficiency studies.
I think in reality, that's where we get involved. I don't, as I recall, the budget discussions, at least the ones I attended to, I don't recall specific discussion about the electric utility budget. I do recall, obviously, a couple times during the course of the year, the rate sufficiency studies and evaluations and recommendations. I guess that's where the emphasis is.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps that's where it should be.
Yeah, I think that was very, very good and useful. I would like to see I would like to continue the variance analysis, continue to look at those. Maybe perhaps even do it a little bit more formally. But in terms of the implication here might be read that we assist in the preparing next year's budget, and I don't think that we did that or we should be doing that. But I want to monitor the budgets as they go forward.
And I agree with that conclusion. I think what Rock pointed out is an enterprise fund is totally different than the general fund in the fact of they're supposed to raise enough revenues in order to support that utility. And I think in a general respect, it's a lot less when you start doing budget amendments to utility funds because there could be things that come about, replacement of, or the work on Unit 2 and 5 as an example. But I think the rate sufficiency is an issue that the Utility Commission should be involved in the active role of that, whether it's water and sewer or electric. But I think that is a critical part of that process.
Okay. So how do we want to word this for 2014? To what we said is continues to assist in the budget process.
I think that it is basically a function of quarterly assessing the operating performance and variance analysis, and periodically, whenever it's submitted, reviewing the city's recommendations for rate sufficiency studies and adjustments to the rates. Too many words, but I could get that down to 5 or 6 words probably.
Okay. Well, I think that
if everybody's
basically
in agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Sherry, and you got that, and you and I can get that down to 5 or 6 words. Okay. Good. Water sewer 2014 goals. I don't know that regionalization is on the table anymore, and I don't know that I don't have any desire to look into that and raise that. I think we have a very efficient system, and I want to continue to work on making it more efficient and more cost beneficial. I'm kind of happy with that. So, unless there's some objection, I don't want to set that for a goal for 2014.
I agree.
Rock, you've been.
I just have a comment that follows the presentation of last month, and I think that one of the things that we were seeking, or at least wanted an understanding about, is the application of this particular approach and system and how that affects other parties and whether other parties would agree with our approach and whether or not that brings the long-term desired result. And I just don't see how you can continue to act independently without beginning at least to explore the consequences to other communities or the county, or even on a broader basis to ultimately deal with the problem. So the concept of regionalization, it seems to me, shouldn't be forgotten. In fact, it needs to perhaps take on a new definition. But I just don't see how you continue to meet these not global problems, but regional or statewide problems without having a venue to do that on a larger regional basis. So I'm not so quick or easy to dismiss the idea that what the city does has an influence and should be part of perhaps a larger regional solution. And the specifics, the only one I can relate to, at least at this time, is the specific recommendation that you've made in terms of the initiative to the state, and then how that would facilitate the city's direction and maybe other communities' directions. That could be very powerful in terms of getting that approach expanded. So I'm a little bit of a personal dilemma as to whether or not we or the city takes any initiatives here, and if not, fine, I'll accept.
Well, Rock, I totally agree with you that we need to work closely with the county utility as we address the lagoon issue and these regional issues. But regionalization was the concept of merging the two water sewer systems into one regional system. Or at one point in time, the county made an offer to buy the city's water sewer system and therefore create a larger. Well, that wouldn't be regionalization. That would be the county acquiring us, and we would just have county water sewer. And so, but absolutely, we need to work very closely with the county, with county staff and the county water sewer and the county commission as we monitor the lagoon issues and we see if the septic tanks are the issue that we feel they are. And so let's definitely do that. And I agree with you completely on that and move forward. As we come to that goal, we'll bring that back in.
Another 5 or 6
Can't you call it something different?
challenge.
Can't you call it something different? I don't think you should call it regionalization. There's nothing wrong with opening lines of communications between the county and the city and any other surrounding areas concerning this lagoon issue and meeting and discussing at a certain level. But I think regionalization, again, is not exactly the term you want to use there, because that does mean that all the utilities become under a regional. And I don't think at this time that we want to open that can of worms again.
Right, and I think open lines of communication is words that does a very good job, and it meets Rock's 5-word goal. So,
Yeah, I think the term coordination is probably a better used term. And if there would be a party similar to you on the county side where you could have that interaction. Now, Rob does have interaction with their utility director there, but if there was some mechanism by which there would be a group again that could work, because there's no question eventually interconnections of the system, which we already have a couple of those, but we could possibly do some more of those interconnections, and we're selling the utilities back and forth as a means. But that the key is to find who is your counterparty with the county would be the I think part of the success if we're going to have success in that area. Who do you converse with?
it would be nice, but the county is no longer has a utility committee, and so I don't know that they'll get one back, but that would be good. And I think so. Let's coordination of issues and so let's go ahead and let's set this lagoon issue goal that we've talked about now. We're going to strike regionalization. We're not going to do that for next year, but we are going to monitor the health of the lagoon as it relates to the water sewer, and continue to make recommendations for things that we can do, and to keep either coordinate with the county wastewater and keep open lines of communication. Encourage open lines of communication between staff on that matter. Is that pretty good? Okay. Jerry, you pretty much have that?
Would we want to add storm retention into that as well in the concept of the overall health of the lagoon? Because it's one of those aspects that becomes a part of the three-legged stool, if you will, when we discuss fertilization and the sewer issues or septic. Possibly just adding that if we're talking about open lines of communication in regards to the health of the lagoon.
Okay, yeah. Stormwater.
I think it's water and sewer pollution of the lagoon. Maybe we'll cover it, right? Because stormwater is water. It's water and sewer pollution.
Yeah, I think it does, and I don't think it hurts to mention that specifically.
I had a little sentence that I had prepared.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind listening to it,
I
you might
look
find some
forward to
stuff out. Yeah, right. I put, continue to pursue environmentally feasible options for improving water quality in the Indian River Lagoon, including lobbying these legislatures change current statutes and to include hybrid-type systems.
Okay. On the 19th, I'm on the agenda to go make our recommendation that we do that, and we go for that amendment to the law, that we change the law. And so if City Council doesn't do that then, by the 5th, then we'll probably have to wait another year on that. So I don't know how that would affect our goals for next year. Jim, you any thoughts?
On the stormwater, I think that's an excellent idea of bringing that into the discussion. And maybe sometime after the first year, you can have Monty Falls come in and give a presentation on what we have done to this point and how we're managing at least the stormwater part of the discharge into the lagoon. But I think he could give you a pretty good view of where the city is in that respect and how many of those boxes we have and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay. We want to continue, Rob, to work with you on optimization. We've already mentioned that. And bring before us any new regulations that would affect things for next year. I think we've finished our dewatering the sludge issues. I don't know that there's. Maybe we can monitor the installation of the system. Okay, that.
And also, once it's installed, its effectiveness to meeting our goals. How it's working.
Yeah.
Keeping us abreast of that we, actually are doing what we thought we were going to do, as opposed to,
Okay.
so we'd know.
Will it be in operation by the end of 2014?
By the end of 2014, yes.
Okay. So we'll monitor the installation and ultimate operation of the new. And what do we call that? It's dewatering system, sludge. Let's get the right language here.
Biosolids processing.
Biosolids processing.
The old term was sludge dewatering.
Okay.
The new term, biosolids processing.
Biosolids processing. Okay. The much better term. Okay. Rob, you've never had a rate study. I don't think you've needed to, because we haven't made any recommendations for rate changes. And I don't know if we. I'd like to suggest that if you do one next year, that we do a rate sufficiency study first, and we discuss that and air that, and understand the reason and the need why we need to change our rates. And I don't think I see any objection from you or Jim, so we'll add that too.
Do we evaluate on a quarterly basis variance analysis of the water and sewer utility, or just the electric?
I think that we did it on a semi-annual basis. I think we had Cindy came in one time and reported on the variance analysis. I'd like to see that quarterly. So I think we should. So one of the things that I think we should put in there is get quarterly, and if we state that, then we'll probably remember to do that.
Is that acceptable?
It's just as easy on the water and sewer as it is electric, so that's not an issue.
Okay. Also, with anybody, any goals for next year?
Well, I think Jim had mentioned the South County water and sewer franchise fee. Maybe a monitoring of that.
Yes, and actually I had mentioned too is to try to on the same line, looking at the rate comparisons and trying to analyze the rates and South County rates. So how would we want to?
You said that.
To monitor the South County water and sewer franchise fee.
Okay, the discussion on the franchise fee with.
Yeah, the discussion on the franchise fee can be, brought once we get to a point where that becomes a discussion. It's my understanding the county may be coming back to the city with a proposal. We have not seen that yet, but based on what we've read in the newspaper, that appears to be what's going to happen. And so at that point, maybe you can be engaged in that conversation as well. And the fact of the matter is, I think it's 2017 before the franchise actually elapses in it. So, I mean, there's still a couple years off.
Okay.
But your city time, that's jet speed, I guess.
Good. And
I have one final thought. In a couple of discussions over the last few months where there's been new technology involved, I think in the first case I was concerned about the patent on the new technology and whether or not the company might survive, and ask those questions and so forth. And then when it came to last month's presentation, I think it was important for us neophytes in that particular area to understand the technology and the future of the technology and its strengths and weaknesses. And I got thinking that, and I don't know that it should be done differently, but perhaps we could set as a goal or an objective to become in advance of the specific business proposal, which has a long life. I mean, at least the two situations that we've looked at has a very long life. And it might be, and I don't know if you can separate them, but it might be helpful to come to us with a presentation showing the status of the technology, its future, its strengths, its weaknesses. I would find that useful in terms of making an assessment of the overall proposal. And then I get thinking it might be of value to the community to have that understanding of what resources are being spent to improve their lives and the rest of the people in the community's lives. It's just a thought. I don't know whether or not it should be somehow represented in the goals, other than it become part and parcel of each of the specific recommendations by the directors for improvements and or the application of new technology. But to me, it was very helpful when we went through the exercise, and I just don't want to see that lost on either the commission or the community at large.
Would you want to maybe add to monitor the standard maintenance of the facilities and the water sewer as well?
Yes, I think that'd be good.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay. Then if that's if there's no other comments about this, I'm going to propose that I'm going to make a motion that you allow Sherry and I to put these together in a memo as I did last year, present it, and I'd like to present it to City Council on the 19th. And I think if we do that, maybe I don't see anything that pressing for December meeting, and maybe we can not have a December meeting. Unless something comes up, in which case there's some news on the electric issue or something that we need to. So I'm sort of asking for pre-approval of this process, so we don't necessarily have to meet in
Sherry,
December.
but I don't know whether we can trust you.
You're probably one of the wisest members of the committee here, Rob.
So moved.
Right.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So I will prepare this report and present it on the 19th City Council meeting, as well as the other report that I'm going to prepare and present, and move forward. Yeah, I did. I had one other thing I wanted to ask, and Rob, how did it go with finance?
The Finance Commission meeting went very well. I did a short. Well, it was.
Let me step in here just for the
Audience.
record. How did it go with the Finance Committee on the idea that you have for removing the effluent from the septic tanks and that whole process that you presented to us last month? So now.
Very well. And poor Sherry had to sit through that presentation for the third time. So she, I think, is done. I think she's going to find somebody else to, if we ever have to give it again, she's going to try to find somebody else to sit in on that meeting. But it went very well. The Finance Commission, which was very interesting, felt that it was important that we move forward with that. And they felt that it would be good for Vero Beach to be the leader in trying to get that process pushed through. So they were very supportive. I believe they're going to have a memo very similar to yours, Scott. In fact, I forwarded that on to Peter Gorey and I think it's going to be very short like yours, in that they're wanting to propose that we engage the legislative body this year. And they didn't get hung up on the money issue at all, and they more or less said, yeah, we feel that there's money will be available, and we'll talk about that at a later time, and that if we need to earmark it, we can earmark it. And I don't think they took a formal vote on that, but they felt that we had the money for it if we got that far. And since we won't know till March or April of next year, really, how it'll stand on the state level, it probably doesn't make sense to earmark that and set it aside or anything like that.
Okay, great. Thank you
They're
very much.
following your footsteps and wanting to push the council to
Okay.
at least
And-
engage the state.
And I hope this goes forward and this works, because this is it. It seems to me a really exciting way to solve the septic tank issue at a very reasonable cost to the homeowner.
And on the 9th of December, the IRNA is going to have a meeting. We're going to have one in here to talk to their formal group more than when I met with them last month.
Okay.
It was just they have a committee on lagoon issues, so it was probably about a dozen people. They're going to have more people. And on the 9th, and I think they were trying to get Brian LaPointe also to come.
And
on
where
the
will that
9th.
be?
In these council
In this
chambers.
council, and will Sherry be taking minutes?
Unless she finds somebody else to do it.
Okay, well, good luck with that, Sherry.
What time? You didn't give a time.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. It's either 9 or 10. I believe it's in the morning. Do you have it down there, Sherry?
It's at 10 o'clock.
10
10
o'clock.
o'clock on the 9th. Okay, great. Anything else to come before us today? Make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.